let's face it, it's not necessary that you have to be an Elon Musk or I would say Mark Zuckerberg. It's not necessary that everyone has to be that. Small is beautiful as well. It's
Yeah.
not necessary to be big and huge. It's not required.
Welcome, everyone, to the Tech Business Roundtable podcast show. This is a podcast show dedicated to shining a spotlight on tech innovators, entrepreneurs, founders, and the compelling narratives behind the movements they've established. I'm your host, Ryan Davies. I'm hosting today's discussion on leading with purpose, building and scaling a tech startup with Ashwin Madhavan. Ashwin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Thank you so much.
This is going to be a really cool story and journey with Ashwin. We were talking before we started recording here. It's just so great to hear his journey and such a great take on the tech landscape, being a founder, and really just taking what you love doing and kind of putting it into a different area and kind of having that light bulb go off almost. For our listeners, Ashwin, the co-founder and CEO at vidBoard.ai, and really has been a decade-long journey as a serial entrepreneur, has a passion for technology and innovation, and prior to founding vidBoard.ai, he played a pivotal role in establishing Inhelion.com, which was a bootstrap venture that burgeoned into one of India's largest online legal education platforms. Incredibly impressive court portfolio under Ashwin's leadership. Trained over 50,000 students and formed collaborations with prestigious institutions and companies. He's a prolific author, having penned 3 books on business, intellectual property, cyber crisis management. It's garnered recognition from renowned publishers. Dual master's degree in law. I think you said you have 3 law degrees, and we were talking before, in technology and law from around the world. Dalhousie in Halifax, a University of Oslo. He's a world traveler, a World War II enthusiast. Just a student of world history by the sounds of things, and really just immerses himself in extensive reading around military history, politics, business on a daily basis. Ashwin, I think this is going to be so much fun. You're going to take us on such a great ride here. I don't know if there's anything else in the intro to cover there, but I think beyond that, let's just jump right in and talk a bit about your background and, what inspired you to become an entrepreneur in the tech space.
Yeah, all right. So thank you so much, Ryan, for having me here. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I saw my grandfather built his company, and I saw my father build his companies. And there was always this inkling in the back of my head that I will one day do something of my own. And but as luck would have it, destiny took me in a direction where entrepreneurship was not the first thing that students would do. I joined law school, one of India's premier legal education institutions. The day I joined, I realized that this place is not for me. But that thing of getting out of law school and coming back home and saying that, hey, parents, I'm not interested in the law, that didn't come. It should have come that time, but it didn't. It didn't strike. So I took 5 years of my time in trying to understand where I can fit into this legal world. By 2008, I joined law school in 2005, and by 2008, I befriended a very well-known, leading, very humble, fascinating human being who is my mentor. His name is Rodney. He's one of India's leading technology lawyers. He and I really hit it off from the day one, and his interests were history. My interests were history, and his love for traveling, his love for photography, and love for discussing politics and intellectual stuff really matched with mine. And we never discussed anything about the law. We only discuss about these things. That's how our friendship started. And with that friendship, we decided to take the plunge into entrepreneurship. So that's how my entrepreneurial journey began. While the entrepreneurial journey started with small projects here and there, I also wrote my first book with him on intellectual property and business, again, a non law book. And that book took me about 6 years to write and research along with him. And meanwhile, while I was doing this, I finished my undergraduation in law and I went to Canada on a full scholarship. I did get through into the elite law schools in the United States, including the likes of Berkeley, but then I wanted to get admission and say no to them. There was this kick that I had to say no to these people. So I got admission and I said no, and I ended up in Dalhousie. And while uh, pursuing my first masters, I decided that it's high time that I should start venturing into the space of entrepreneurial world. But still that time, the inner me was telling me that no, I should become a lawyer. And I went through a lot of interviews across Bay Street firms in Toronto, in Ottawa, and in Halifax, and all of them rejected me. So then I decided to finish the law degree, and I said, okay, fine. Now it's high time that I finish this, and I uh, decided to do another master's degree in the law, which was in University of British Columbia. While pursuing that degree, I finally realized that law is not for me. So I decided to say adios, amigo, and I came back to India. And that's how I started my first entity in the legal education space. Now, why we started that was we knew that there was this big problem in the Indian legal education system, which is that majority of the law schools do not teach you what is actually supposed to be taught in a law school. They are, unfortunately, the students are taught everything which is not supposed to be taught, like legal theory and boring stuff, which 99% of the time you don't use in your daily life. So we decided to bridge that gap between academia and the profession by launching these capsule programs, on-demand learning programs, which are quite popular in the West, but they were not structured in our part of the world. And to our surprise, it really got along well, and with the student community, and we did extremely well. That's when uh, uh, this legal education business started taking an upward trajectory. And by 2020, when the pandemic hit, we were flooded with a lot of requests on launching more and more and more courses. And to our horror and shock, we didn't have the necessary wherewithal to record so many lectures at one go and to invite experts from all across the country in our office to record those lectures, because we just didn't have the money and the means to create those lectures, to create those recordings, if I must say. So that's when the idea of the second startup, vidBoard.ai, came in, wherein what the idea was very simple: how to create videos from written text, and how to make a front facing human photograph talk in multiple languages without making you step into a video studio. So that was a mandate. So I met my friend. He's a very dear friend of mine. His name is Tushar Bhatnagar. You have interviewed him in the past, a couple of weeks back.
Mm-hmm.
So I met Tushar and I told him that, listen, this is the mandate. Can we do this? So he looked at me for a couple of minutes and he said, yes, it can be done. And today vidBoard is in its version 2. We are about to launch our version 3 of the platform in the later half of December, early January, where what we are doing is we are trying to reduce the time that a person takes to create videos at scale from, say, number of hours to less than 5 minutes. So by bringing in generative AI and design skills all rolled into one. So we are trying to ensure that people can create videos in a jiffy without spending too much time, money, and effort. So that is what vidBoard.ai is. And this is
I think
where we are right now.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely incredible. It's so amazing where you've got these engaging, avatars and sets that are, it really shows the evolution of AI and what's being done to be able to empower other tech founders like yourself to be able to be more productive and professional and get their message across and just as part of their marketing and communication efforts. It's such an amazing platform. When we talk a little bit more about, building that company, building that vision, how did you approach building such a strong foundation for vidBoard.ai in your in the early stages? And were there any kind of pivotal moments or decisions that you would say really shaped the trajectory of vidBoard.ai or any of your other startups that you've been working on?
The first thing that I thought very uh, uh, I would say deeply was the fact that not to take external capital, because if you take external capital right in the beginning, you are actually, I would say, restricted from thinking beyond uh, what the board wants you to think.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you take external money, you tend to be at the mercy of the board. No matter, even if you take a little amount of money, there is always this controlling factor that is at play. So that is something that I did not take in my first startup and also in the second startup. I'm not averse to taking money. And what I'm trying to say is that it is important for any entrepreneur to initially, before thinking of taking external capital, he should at least have made some money, deployed his own money and the money that the business has generated into further developing the product, and then seek for external capital, because that way he will know where to put money, where to spend, how much to spend, what to do, what not to do. Because entrepreneurs who don't take who don't bootstrap from the beginning and they take external capital, what I have found is that they get carried away by the fact that they are getting millions and millions of dollars in their account, but that is not the business's money. It is actually steroid money. So when you get steroid money, you tend to use it in a way which is not supposed to be done, and that's how businesses flounder. So I always felt, and I think that is something that I would advise every entrepreneur, that learn to bootstrap, start small. Rome was not built in a day. And let's face it, it's not necessary that you have to be an Elon Musk or I would say Mark Zuckerberg. It's not necessary that everyone has to be that. Small is beautiful as well. It's
Yeah.
not necessary to be big and huge. It's not required. You can be small, you
Yeah.
can be beautiful, and you can make lots of money for yourself and for your investors and for the people who work with you.
I love that perspective, right? Of just understanding, being comfortable with not needing to be the next Apple, the next the next Google, the next whatever it is, and really just being understanding, like, what do I want to do? What's going to make me happy? And I think, that's a great point that I hear a lot, and I think needs to be reiterated, is around the fact where it's like, great to get funding. It seems really wonderful. You can reach all your dreams and scale at this unprecedented pace if you want to do it. But for a lot of people that want to be a tech entrepreneur, that takes the entrepreneurship out of it to a certain extent, because now, once again, you've got someone to answer to, right? Like, you're really at somebody else's will and whim, and sometimes it really
Yes, true.
changes what you can do. So ask yourself that question. There's nothing wrong with, of course, saying no, like, I want to scale, I want to be huge, I want to do that. But for a lot of people, don't let that be, oh, I won because I got a funding or whatever it is. Be able to understand
Exactly.
where you're comfortable at, right? And
Actually, you are absolutely right there. What I don't understand in people is that they say that, oh, my idea will work if I have funding. So this funding concept is a very new concept. Now, when we were kids, and when you were a kid, we were taught in school that a businessman spends. What is a business? A businessman is a person who spends $10 in the morning but earns $12 at night by night time,
Yep.
and the $2 that profit, that is business. But what is happening in the VC space is you are spending $1,000 to earn $2. That's not business. That is something else which I've not understood. I don't want to, I'm not saying it is wrong or right. Maybe tomorrow, 25, 2 years down the line, 5 years down the line, vidBoard may seek funding, but seek funding only when it is required. Not take funding just for the sake of taking funding. It's like saying, I need 10 dollars to run uh, a tea stall, but the investor is giving me $500,000 and telling me that, hey, now you've got $500,000, now spend.
Yeah.
That, that's ridiculous. I mean, that's what is happening, and it's good that today, after this funding winter thing has started, it's good that people are beginning and they have finally understood what business means. It is not spending $10 and earning $1. No, good business is spending $10 and earning $12, $15, or $25 or $30 if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the fact that we always have this fascination about being a unicorn. No, I'm of the other school of thought. I would rather be a camel. I don't want to be a unicorn. Unicorn is an imaginary thing. I've never seen it. I've seen a camel. I know that camel is brilliant. He he is the ship of the desert. He will only have water when he sees water, and he'll have so much of water that he doesn't need to have water for the next 10 days. That is a bootstrapped entrepreneur,
I love that.
not a unicorn who is imagine thinking on Excel sheets that, oh my God, I'm $1 billion company. But for God's sake, I mean, are you really $1 billion company? No, no, no. I've got billions of dollars in cash parked in my bank, and I'm multiple revenue, $1 billion multiple valuation, all that crap. I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
No. Yeah. It's that goal of, winning the lottery type of a thing too, is a strategy. Being a unicorn is a strategy where it's like, is it realistic? Are you actually, it's I love the reaction. I love the answer there, and I love that comparison. I know I saw in the show notes that you actually wanted to point out that you love dogs and camels and pigs, and I love that you brought the camels into this. So you're just to kind of give us, because I was going to ask that question, like, why that's an odd show, but yeah, that totally, I love it. You've drawn the analogy for me and connected those
Yeah,
dots. I think that's
why
wonderful.
I was telling you, I was before we started, I was telling you that when I was on a holiday in Morocco, I I befriended a camel. Her name was Zizu. So I was observing her. I mean, I was like, what a wonderful creature. I mean, she is not seeing or he. I don't know whether it was a he or a she. I'm assuming it was a she. Uh, it's such a fascinating creature. It knows that it has this much grass
Yeah.
in this vast area of desert. It will eat it and it will survive till he finds or she finds the next patch of grass,
Yeah.
or the next patch of water, or the next oasis. That is a bootstrapped entrepreneur. That's how we are wired inside. I will always think twice to spend the next dollar. Like today in the morning, one of my developers told me that, Ashwin, for building the website, I will charge you $2,000 or something. I I heard her on the phone. I said, no, I will not spend that much money. I switched the phone off. I called up another developer who's my another. I said, I would want you to do it at $300. He said, okay, I'll do it. Now there is the difference. Now see, now from a bootstrap perspective, I'm always careful that where I have to spend that $1 or $2 or $300 or $500. Now, if this guy says, Ashwin, no, I cannot do it in $300. I would do it in $700. I'll say, okay, do it for $700. But I will not pay $3,000.
Yeah.
I'm careful. But when you are in a funded startup, you are not careful because it's not your money, for Christ's sake. It is somebody else's money. So you will
Yeah.
not be careful.
Yeah.
And that leads to your downfall. And it happens. I mean, people see only out of 100 funded startups, only one succeeds and the 99 just get destroyed. I'm trying to tell the audience the 99% which that do get destroyed, because they do get destroyed. And you are seeing examples
Yeah.
uh, of many companies right now in the United States, in Canada, in India, that are just floundering.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, again, another wonderful analogy. I think it totally makes sense. And again, you hear it all the time. You have investors that are coming to you. And if you were to go back to your investor and say, why isn't this done? And they say, well, I got this for 2,000, so I had to call someone else. And they'd be like, I don't care. I gave you the money, just get it done. Right. And it's like, that's great, but you're going to need that for something else. And it's great to accelerate because, again, you're on someone else's timetable, you're on someone else's terms. And then it becomes, like you said, it can be a reckless, repeatable strategy of just get it done until you turn around and go, where'd the money go? I thought there was still money here, whatever it was, right? And then you're like, well, I guess we're done now because I'm out.
And if for example, some buyer comes and they buy the company out, the founders don't realize that the founders will get the money last.
Yeah.
First, the investors will get, and they'll get it at a premium.
Yes.
And only the leftover part will be divided in with you and your co-founder and your employees.
Right.
People forget that. They think, oh, my startup got sold for $100 million. But how much did the founder make? Have you asked that question?
Yeah.
And for that, you need to read. And you need to read, and you need to watch YouTube channels. You need to see. These are important things for young entrepreneurs who think that entrepreneurship means quick money and becoming rich. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about all the famous business houses in the United States today, the Rockefellers. I mean, they started their business in the 1600s or the 1700s, right? They're still going strong. Look at Microsoft in 1979. I don't know when they started. Look at them. They're still going strong. Yep. Look at Apple. They're all these legacy companies, and their fundamentals were right. I'm not saying that a funded startup fundamentals are not right. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if you have to do business the right way, you have to accept and see the good case studies rather than the bad case studies and say, I want to be like Elizabeth Holmes or whatever that lady's name is who was sent to jail.
Yep.
Yeah. So that is not entrepreneur. That's fraud. So there are these, things you need to, as young entrepreneurs, we have to keep thinking, and we have to keep reading about these things, because that is how we will be grounded.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't want a Theranos repeat story what she did there, and I love the again. I think there's just so much here to take away, and like you said, do your reading, go to YouTube, come to the Tech Business Roundtable podcast show, and have people like Ashwin help us guide you, right, to help you understand things like this. This is exactly why you're here, and why we do what we do is to be able to understand exactly that, right? Like to get a message across and to understand what you hear, and maybe what those, what you think the trends are not necessarily the right, right for you, or the right way to go. And certainly, you're going to have your failures and your setbacks. And like you said, it might be longer to go between those waters or those patches of grass, but that really is what's going to, help build that backbone from that bootstrap perspective and keep you
absolutely
in control. Right. And I think I want to pivot slightly here. I know we're already at time, but I have so much I love talking to you about here. And it's
Let's
sort of,
talk.
You're in the generative AI space, and we've been talking about this ability to be, adaptive. And that's part of what the fundraising perspective or non-fundraising gives you, that ability. This is an ever-evolving landscape that you're in. And how are you able to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to innovation? And do you have any advice for founders that are looking to really identify and capitalize ways to stay ahead?
See, time has come for generative AI startups to focus on use cases rather than building new technologies. because AI, starting an AI startup is very, I would say, it's cost unfriendly. You have to spend a lot of money
Mhm.
in instantly when you start something. So I would rather, there are, and like, let's take the example of OpenAI and ChatGPT. There are so many use specific startups that have already created their softwares around the OpenAI API keys. Uh, I would tell all the entrepreneurs, including myself, every now and then, that I cannot, if at all I have to start something in the generative AI space, I would focus on use cases, focus on niche areas, and then harp in rather than, creating another chat GPT, because that I can't do. It's just not possible. You need to have a, hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars of funding. Plus, some things which people don't talk about is that you need to have lots and lots of water supply. It might sound, you have to have a lot of water supply to ensure that your servers remain cool, because GPU servers, if they are run 24 hours a day, there is a lot of power being used, a lot of electricity is being used, and a lot of water has to be used to ensure that the systems become, they don't melt, or for that matter they don't become, because GPUs, if they are running at maximum capacity and maximum speed and maximum usage, they tend to become very hot. So these things founders don't think. They think, oh, we'll build another open AI. No, it can't be done, for God's sake. You need to have friends like Satya Nadella who are willing to spend $1 billion or $10 billion and put it in open AI and say, okay, let's do it together.
Mhm.
It's not realistically possible.
Right.
In my opinion, I'm not saying there can't be other open AI type of company. There can be, but it's not that tomorrow there'll be 10 open AI companies will succeed. No, you need to have lots and lots of pockets and deep pockets.
I think it's just, I mean, there's so much to unpack. I'm just so, like I said, we could go for so long here and just talking about, some of these ideas. The last one I kind of want to cover, kind of, I think, combines the both of them, right? Because you mentioned about like the funding winter, you mentioned about some of the changes that we're seeing, and not just the rapid, incredible changes we're seeing from tech, but the changes we're seeing in funding, the changing that we're seeing from being a market centric or a customer centric approach, and understanding, focusing on market, focusing on use case, right? Not on technology. So there's so much going on here. We're talking about tons of rapid changes, business strategy, and shifting that to this industry change. Can you talk a little bit about the your need the need to be adaptive, to pivot, and to recognize, like you said, maybe it's funding has changed, the use case has changed, whatever it is, to really continue to grow and fit your niche, and grow to your customer and your market.
See, in order to do that, the only thing that I, as a first time generative AI startup founder, would do, because it's my first as well, is that to listen to the audience that you are catering to, especially to the ones who have paid to use your tool, because they will tell you what you need to do, not the other way around. You will
Yeah.
not go and tell them, hey, I want to do this. No, they will tell you what you need to do, because in a technically, you are there because of them. So the initial users that come to you and use your product, they should tell you what you need to do, where you need to go. And that's how we have evolved since we launched, uh, say 8 months back, and to where we are today. And for that, business strategy wise, if you are running a SaaS platform, the first thing that I would say is that make an MVP immediately and launch it. After launching it, ensure that you have a great UI UX or a good decent UI UX, and launch the tool on a marketplace kind of platform such as AppSumo, and there are many other marketplaces, software marketplaces that are out there.
Mhm.
That way you will be getting instant validation, instant traffic, and people will start using your tool, and then you can seek feedback from them because they are the ones who are putting in money and using your
Yep.
tool at a very discounted rate though. So then you can ask them, hey, how do I improve? How do I do it? How do I do this? How do I do that? So they will feel happy that, hey, look, listen, a founder is asking me for help. So you
Yeah.
have to understand from his psychology that a founder is trying to talk to me. Wow. Although you are not some big messiah, you are also a human being like him. But the the thought process of the customer is, oh my God, the founder is talking to me. Let me give him my 2 cents. Let me give him my ideas on how he can improve his business. So in a way, you're not only helping him, you are helping your business as well. So that is something that I will always tell anyone who is in the SaaS field to go out there and just launch a tool and get it on these marketplace platforms to get the first traction.
Perfect. I think closing off here, I want to kind of sum it up a little bit in terms of, maybe some excitement that you have for the future of the tech industry, but maybe just even a little more granular and talk about vidBoard.ai and how you envision, the role of your own company in shaping that future.
Bitboard wants to be the one-stop solution for everyone who wants to create videos at scale using generative AI in the least amount of time, spending the least amount of money, and using the least amount of human effort. So that's what Bitboard wants to do. And God willing, we are heading towards that vision. And
Yep.
hopefully by next year, we should be completing that.
It's incredible. And you've got some amazing, amazing orgs that you're working with, amazing companies. The definitely vidboard.ai, go check it out because it is incredible what they're doing. It is wonderful for how it can help you scale regardless of where you are. And you'll see that again with some of the best companies that they're working with. And the pricing model is spectacular. So I mean, it's absolutely wild that it's really what you're committed to is helping. And I think that alone is a testament to show what you're committed to. This isn't some long-term crazy subscription model that you're putting together where you'll get your hooks in and it goes. This is a look, come here, we're going to help you. This is going to be an amazing product. We're going to be the leaders and really showcase your ability to do that. So definitely vidboard.ai, go
And
check
one
that out. Yeah.
and one advice I would like to give everyone is that there is no need to be the leader in your space. There can be many small leaders in your space. It's like going to, there are many five-star hotels in your whichever city that you may be living in. It's not that there's only one restaurant, one airline, one food shop, one food store. There are many. So you need to be focused on the customer. Customer is supreme. Customer will do what you need to do. Focus on that.
Perfect. I think that's an amazing piece of advice to kind of close us off here. And Ashwin, last little bit is for anybody who, all of our listeners here, I'm sure there's people who are going to want to get in contact with you, not just about vidboard, but just, hey, you've got this perspective that I would love to connect with, to ask you a question, anything like that. Is there a way our listeners can do so?
They can write to me on LinkedIn, and I prefer having such conversations. I'll be more than happy to get onto a one-on-one with them on Gmeet or Zoom or whatever channel suits them. I hate texting. So this kind of conversations I love.
Perfect. There it is. Take advantage, folks. I think this was just an absolutely incredible podcast. Ashwin, thank you so much for your time, your
Thank you for
insight
having me.
here. I think we've got another, so many other topics that we can continue to talk about in the future and follow the vidboard.ai journey because I think again you're this space is ever growing. The company is going to continue to grow, and we'd love to continue to check in and see how this growth story and this success story continues over time. So thanks, Ashwin. Really excited to have you today, and already I'm excited to have you back again. So
Yes, definitely.
wonderful. So with that, final minute here to thank Ashwin Madhavan for this amazing podcast, leading with purpose, building and scaling a tech startup. And I also want to thank our listeners. We can't do what we do without you. It's as simple as that. So until we meet again with another amazing TBR episode, I'm your host, Ryan Davies. Thanks, everyone, and take care.